Conference. Welcome to York, in the north, apparently. I see familiar faces out there, but I also see some new ones. Welcome, one and all. And to all those first-timers, hope to see you at the First-Timers Drinks that's taking place straight after this. For those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Wendy Chamberlain. I'm the MP for North East Fife. I'm Deputy Leader of the Scottish Party, the Chief Whip in Westminster. I could go on. I never have free time and I am very tired. But conference, this is one of the best and most exciting times of the year, and I'm here tonight with you to kick things off. We all know that Lib Dems love a prop. I'm a bit sad to see that instead of me giving a wall to knock down or a balloon to pop, I have a blank whiteboard. It's quite brave of the party, really. As we've all seen recently, the dangers of leaving politicians next to blank flipboards. No taking any pictures. But let's see what I can do with this. Looks a wee bit familiar. The Prime Minister showed us that the best use of a whiteboard was to draw a very sad house. No wonder it's sad, expensive and uninsulated due to his government's failing policies. But you know what? I am a Liberal Democrat, so therefore I feel we need a bar chart. I want some guesses about the kind of bar chart I'm going to draw here. What sort of exemplifies the 2019 Parliament more than anything? Sleaze, failing economy, lies, absolutely, absolutely. There's no yellow here, so I'm giving you some hints here about kind of what I'm drawing. Yeah. All these things are possible, but look, I'm going to do this thing here, and that's maybe going to confuse you a little bit. But it's churn. 17 down for the Conservatives, 2 lost for Labour, 5 for the SNP. Let's not talk about reform and whatever the other one is, led by Laurence Fox. But not for us. Again, of 4 fantastic MPs under Ed Davies and federal leadership. So, when I think about North East Fife, or if you've heard me talking about North East Fife, you'll have heard me talk about all the great place names, such as Auchtermuchty, the birthplace of the Proclaimers, Fruchie, or my favourite, Canucker. Just wait till you see that one written down. And I know all of these places because I visit them frequently to speak to the communities and to voters, just as I have done for over 7 years. And when I won the seat in 2019, it was the most marginal seat in the whole of the UK. You've definitely heard me say this before. 2 votes separated us from the SNP, 2 votes. Now, I know what you're thinking. That really, really was a bar chart. With winning so in reach, it would have been easy to get complacent. But I'm really proud to say that my team was anything but. We worked bloody hard, getting out on the doorstep and talking to as many voters as we could. In the cold, in the rain, in the wind. This was Scotland in 2019 in December, in the dark. And in the end, it paid off. That SNP majority was cut, lost, and I've got a majority of an awful lot more than just those 2 votes. But it's quite clear that this election will be no different, this next general election. And we have a similar game plan in place, getting out as often and as early as possible. In fact, we've been doing it ever since we were able to after COVID, speaking to as many voters as we possibly can, knowing not a single vote or a single voter can be taken for granted. And I know that up and down the country, plenty of other Lib Dem teams are gearing up or have already geared up and are underway with a similar approach right now. Because it's no secret that what works to put more of this orange on the map is strong and consistent local campaigns. It is the only way to restore the Liberal Democrats to their rightful place as the third party in Westminster. And to get this dreadful Conservative government out of number 10. Now, conference, I'm sure you don't need reminding of just how important that is. Thinking about all the dreadful things the Tories have been up to is as easy as A, B, C. In fact, it's so easy that we literally did just that. The Liberal Democrat A to Z of Tory sleaze. From A, 30p Lee Anderson, to Z, Nadeem Zawawi, the Conservatives have it covered when it comes to sleaze and scandal. I won't remind you of what X stood for. Oh, go on. X-rated tractors. And although we can thank Neil Parish and his internet browsing habits for giving us the brilliant Richard Ford, our country deserves so much better than what we've had to deal with over the last 4 years. Now, of course, it's not just the Tories. We've seen just as much sleaze and scandal from the SNP Scottish Government as the Conservative one. So wherever you are based, there is a battle worth fighting. And the plus of that, getting some new, brilliant Liberal Democrat MPs elected to join me and my colleagues on the green benches. And on that note, I'm sure you've heard enough from me as a current MP. I thought you'd prefer to hear from some of tomorrow's MPs instead. And so therefore, I'm so thrilled to introduce you all to the woman who will be the first MP from Harpenden and Berkhamsted, and that's Victoria Collins.
Good evening, conference. We are on the brink of a pivotal general... Oh, you can hear me now. I'm going to start again. Good evening, conference. We are on the brink of a pivotal general election at a time when people are searching for real political leadership and desperate for a future they can believe in. We cannot let them down. I'm Victoria Collins, and I have the privilege of being the candidate to stand for the new constituency of Harpenden and Berkhamsted. A seat in Hertfordshire that we aim to turn gold. I started campaigning for the Liberal Democrats with Brexit, but my Liberal journey started long before that. This year marks the 50th year since my mum arrived from Malaysia to the UK to study. Little did she think that she would stay here, let alone start a family, build a business, and that half a decade later find that her daughter might be the first Liberal Democrat MP of East and Southeast Asian descent. Every night after school and most weekends, I used to go to my mum's shop to help out. I remember chatting away to the staff, the customers, to our neighbouring businesses. I remember the late nights when we pick out stock to give to local charity, and I also remember the summer when I offered to run the shop myself. I also remember what happened when the economy turned, having to pack up stock and move to smaller premises because it was that or closure. I remember helping my parents with the mortgage as a teenager, gleefully buying broken biscuits as a family, and only now, later in life, realising just how much work my parents put in to keep a roof above our head and food on the table. throughout those difficult years, I saw firsthand the impact that resilience, determination, and strong role models can have. My parents instilled in me a sense of kindness, fairness, and standing up for others, values that have stayed with me and guided me throughout my adult life. So like my mum, I started my own business. Mine was in tech, and while I was immensely proud of the work that I had done and that achievement, it wasn't long before I started to see the bias against women in the industry. Companies run by women routinely receive less funding than those run by men. I felt this was wrong, and so I started to write about with Forbes and interview female founders to give them a voice. I realised that it was time for me to step up and be one of the strong female role models that I looked up to as a child. I needed to shout from the rooftops in hopes that I would encourage more women. Then, Brexit happened. Then, Boris Johnson happened. Then, Liz Truss happened. And I realised I couldn't sit back and watch this Conservative government take our country for granted. And like so many of you on your Liberal journey, I started campaigning with the Liberal Democrats. I have never looked back. I now speak to people day in, day out who are turning to the Liberal Democrats, looking for an MP to stand up for them and telling me we've got to get those Tories out and turn this country around. And my, are they right? In Harpenden, and Berkhamsted, people are unable to get a GP, are finding it hard to make ends meet. Local businesses are telling me that they're on the brink of closing, and I know that so many of you are hearing the same stories up and down this country. We need to seize this opportunity to build a Britain where families don't have to choose between eating and heating. A country where people don't have to worry about finding a GP. A country leading the charge on tackling climate change, and an international Britain leading on the global stage. As a student of history, I was often fascinated by how pivotal changes come around when a dedicated group of people make massive waves. A turning point when it's the right moment and the right people that all come together. Conference. This is that moment. That historical moment. Our moment. The outcome of the general election will be down to thousands of volunteers, thousands of voters who will go to the ballot box and demand a fair deal. And it is indeed thanks to so many of you that there are Liberal Democrat campaigners all across this country who are stepping up to that challenge, ready to help us build a future that we can believe in. Our next speaker is another one of those campaigners. He's funny, he's charming, but most importantly, he is not wearing a wetsuit this time. Please welcome Eastbourne sweetheart, Josh Babarinde.
Good evening, conference. Fresh from Eastbourne, the sunniest town in the UK, it is wonderful to be back in York. Now, the team asked me to share an inspirational story about how I ended up joining the Liberal Democrats with a view to firing up our activists. But I'm afraid, folks, that it's not the hopey-changey story that the conference team had hoped. But I'm going to tell you anyway. So it was autumn 2009, so just before that big general election. I was 16 years old, and an Eastbourne boy born and bred. My local university is University of Sussex. And I was there for an open day with a few pals, and it happened to be Freshers' Week. And there were stalls of student societies that were lining the campus. And I stumbled across a Liberal Democrat stall, Liberal Youth, as it was then, and I didn't know too much about the party at that point, to be honest. But I tell you what I did know. I really, really wanted the cool beer mat that was on offer from them. The problem was, they wouldn't give me one unless I joined the party, and so I did. And in the weeks and months that followed, I got roped into delivering leaflets and stuffing envelopes and knocking on doors and the rest. Fast forward 15 years, and I end up on this stage, and I am still waiting for that beer mat. Where is it, guys? Mundane joining story, I know, but it is true. But the story that means the most to me is the story of why I have remained a Liberal Democrat member for half my life now. And it's because of our party's unwavering determination to bust the systems, the institutions, the injustices that put people down. Our party's commitment to freeing people from poverty, ignorance, and conformity. Now, this Liberal Democrat mission is important to me, owing particularly to what I saw when I worked on the front line, getting kids out of crime and gangs. Many children born into deep poverty, backed into crime's corner, consigned to the pupil-to-prison pipeline from their first year of school. Shameful. And having grown up in a home that wasn't always safe, where violence and abuse had shattered my own sense of freedom, self-worth, and safety, the Liberal Democrat constitutional pursuit of liberty, of dignity, and of well-being means a lot to me personally too. And today, conference, Liberal Democrats taking a stand is more important than ever. Why? Well, because the Conservatives promised us the land of milk and honey, and instead have delivered a farce of lettuces and of sewage. I'm going to have to say I need the auto cue to speed up a little bit for me, please. Other way, other way. But on a serious note, let's take my local hospital where I was born. We were promised a brand new hospital in Eastbourne, but instead, our hospital has been closed for births on 87 days last year and closed for births all of this year so far due to Conservative underinvestment. The nearest maternity department is 20 miles away. Is this okay, conference? No. Eastbourne's food bank has officially become the busiest in the UK after the Conservatives failed to provide the support that vulnerable people in my town need. Is this okay, conference? No. What about our water quality? We've got 94 glorious beaches blighted by tons and tons of sewage that has led to a downgrade in Eastbourne's water quality. Is that okay, conference? No, it's not. And so the question then is, what are we going to do about it? Take to the streets. That is what we must do. No, not with pitchforks and torches, but armed with focuses and minivan, even more than we are now. And that is because every leaflet we deliver, every door we knock on, and every penny that we raise brings us that much closer to ending the injustice, the scandal, and the disgrace enabled by the Conservative Party. Conference, are you ready to rise to that challenge? Yes. I said, are you ready? Yes. That's what I like to hear. Well, conference, let me introduce you to someone who is working magic in their constituency on the front line of fighting the dark arts of the Conservative Party, it is my pleasure to introduce my PPC pal for Guildford. It's Zoe Franklin. Wow.
So conference, I have been ready for a very long time for this election. I was selected as Guildford's candidate in 2021 after successfully increasing our vote share twice already. In 2019, we managed to reduce the Conservative majority in Guildford from 17,000 to 3. And we didn't want to lose that momentum. Losing the general election was hard. Yet for weeks after, friends and strangers came up to me in the street saying how gutted they were that we hadn't won. And it showed me that the desire for that positive change in Guildford is strong. And that's fueled my determination to pick myself up, dust myself off, and get right back to it. But the chaos that has unfolded over the last 4 years has continued to add fuel to that fire. My home, my constituency, my residents are being let down day after day by a Conservative MP and government who at worst don't care and at the best haven't got a clue. They deserve better. They deserve an MP who answers emails and does casework. They deserve a government that has a plan to make their lives better and fairer, rather than one that's tanked the economy, wasted billions on failed PPE contracts and the rest, and who are morally bankrupt. They need to go. For me in Guildford and for my fellow candidates across the blue wall, 2024 is the year that the hard work finally pays off. In the first week of January, I was proud to welcome Ed Davey to Guildford. We kick-started the election year in true Lib Dem style with the launch of Ed Davey's Tory removals. A premium unseating service primed and ready to oust unwanted Conservative MPs from constituencies in the blue wall and beyond. But behind the fun visual of orange boiler suits and high-vis jackets, there's a serious message. The date of the next general election should not be solely in the hands of one man who is desperate to cling on to his job. We were calling for the return of the Fixed Term Parliament Act to give power back to Parliament and force an election on the 2nd of May. But of course, Sunak didn't listen because he knows his time is running out, and instead of doing what is best for our country, he'd prefer to keep the British people waiting for the change they need and they deserve. And of course, as Liberal Democrats, we are experts in removing Tories. We've proved that with 4 historic by-election wins and record-breaking success at the local level. But in case you do need some assistance, I have some volunteers here to help. And speaking of that stunning success at a local level, our next speaker is from a local council that put those removal skills into action at last May's elections. Here to give us some expert advice is the candidate taking on our loose-lipped education minister in the very special constituency of Chichester, the wonderful Jess Brown-Fuller. Good luck.
Good evening, conference. It is a pleasure to be here tonight. I'm sure, like me, every time your phone pings with a news notification, your heart races, hoping, praying that it is news that the Prime Minister is heading to the palace, finally putting an end to this country's collective misery by calling a general election. But even if Rishi continues to cling on by his fingertips to the front door keys of number 10, voters across the country will still have the opportunity to send a very clear message to this Conservative government on May the 2nd, as polls open for the local elections. Now, it may not be the seismic moment that we've all been waiting for, but it is another chance to tell Rishi Sunak that we have had enough. Last May, while we as a party gained over 400 new councillors, the Conservatives lost over 1,000. If that's not a clear sign that it's over for the Tories, then I don't know how we can spell it out any better. So I'd like to take a moment to take you on Chichester's journey up to this point. Back in 2015, only 3 of our councillors were Liberal Democrats. Now, that number gradually rose over the next 4 years, and by 2019, we'd increased our representation to 11. And then last May, we won a whopping 25 out of 36 seats. We received over half of the vote share across the entire district and reduced the Conservatives to just 5. It is also worth mentioning at this point that Labour didn't get a single seat. Now, despite how exhausted we were at the count, after spending months campaigning, delivering leaflets from dawn to dusk as our step count went through the roof, I wish that I could relive that moment time and time again. There is nothing like it. It wasn't just pure luck that we achieved this. Our success came down to 3 key things that I'm sure are driving each and every one of your campaigns across the country. 1, fantastic candidates with their feet in their communities, talking about the issues that those residents care about. 2, marvellous literature and always accurate bar charts. And 3, a tenacious, energetic and ambitious door-knocking campaign. Now, I never thought I would grow up to be standing on stage in a large auditorium talking about how knocking on doors can and will change the trajectory of this country's future, but here I am. So whether you are about to fight a local election or you're waiting for news of Rishi going to the palace, talking to voters on the doorstep is by far the most effective way of turning a disillusioned, disappointed and apathetic Conservative voter into a Liberal Democrat supporter. And in the blue wall seats, it's a reminder for Labour and Greens that the Liberal Democrats are the clear challengers to the Tories in that area. Door knocking and having conversations shows residents that their local Lib Dem party is active, cares about their values, and it's the way that you'll find your voter base and your supporters, including those that will be willing to put up stake boards for you, deliver for you, and donate to you. And probably my favourite thing about door knocking is it's free. And right now it's a marvellous time to be out knocking on doors when you're not a member of the Conservative Party. Now, I asked a few of those across the country who've been getting some of the highest numbers in the year of what their advice would be for anybody starting out on their canvassing journey. And these were my 3 favourite pieces of advice that came back. So number 1, be yourself, because people want to talk to people, not politicians. 2, do not let this weekend skew your statistics for March. So as soon as you are home, get back to door knocking. And probably most importantly, never head out without your trusty spatula. Now, it is with great pleasure that I'd like to welcome our final speaker to the stage, someone who has knocked on a fair few doors in his time. He's seen the highs and lows of election campaigning, and he's a true Lib Dem icon. So please put your hands together for Tim Farron.
Nice one. Excellent, excellent. Well done. Back again, yeah. So, my mate Liz Truss, leader of the free world. You might have noticed, we sent her on manoeuvres recently. She's been off to America, went really, really well. The fascists absolutely loved her, and they're a tough crowd. And normally, no fun at all. But anyway, she told the folks over there that she and her fellow popular conservatives, which is what they call themselves these days, that was my idea, by the way, that Liz and the other popular conservatives had been cancelled, muzzled and removed by a shadowy liberal elite. Ladies and gentlemen, what a joy to see so many of you here tonight. Welcome to the spring gathering of the deep state. By the way, you may have thought about this yourself a bit, but popular conservatives is a slightly presumptuous name. As if calling yourself popular makes yourself, popular. If that does actually work, then I hereby rename myself the extremely handsome and all-powerful Tim Farron. Don't work. Actually, I've gone for a slightly more realistic slogan back home. True story, I came across it by accident. I was on Kirkby Lonsdale Market with my A-board, which has got my ugly mug on it and a nice sort of strap line that says, Tim Farron here today, which always invites you to write gone tomorrow at the bottom. And my mate Ian Mitchell, who's a fantastic councillor, one of them for Kirkby Lonsdale and Sedbergh, correct? He was minding the A-board whilst I wandered off and talked to the stall holders. And a couple of holidaymakers walked past Ian and the A-board, saw my name and face on it, and one said to the other, oh, Tim Farron must be the MP round here. A friend replied, could be worse. So, ladies and gentlemen, I can now reveal my 2024 general election campaign slogan. Tim Farron, could be worse. Now, in real life, if we are really spending our time kind of contemplating and obsessing about what our slogan should be for the general election, or whether we got the messaging quite right, or what our policy should say, I have been sent by myself to rebuke you. Because you'll have heard me say before that the Liberal Democrats have never lost an election because our manifesto wasn't long enough. In 2015, we actually had a really good slogan. And I don't know if you remember, we got annihilated because it turns out that what the electorate feel about us is a lot more important than a dozen words that we painstakingly put together after months of expensive introspection. So from this point on, if we are not, as Jess rightly said, knocking on doors or delivering leaflets or raising money or finding stakeboard sites, we are wasting our time. In fact, we are doing worse than wasting our time. We will be failing in our mission. Because this election is about removing the worst government in our lifetimes. They have impoverished millions through their economic incompetence, trashed our children's futures as they dragged us out of Europe, soiled Britain's name as they act with pure wickedness towards desperate refugees. We have no right to contemplate our navels and stroke our chins when we have this disgrace of a Conservative Party to defeat and expel from office. In all of my years, I have never been so motivated to defeat an opponent as I am at this election, but I have also never been more motivated to get Liberal Democrats elected to Parliament, because I genuinely fear for my country. I fear that, yes, okay, maybe, if we believe the polls, we might remove the Tories from office, and then we get a Labour government so terrified of its own shadow it will do nothing radical, nothing to restore our relationship with Europe, nothing to tackle the climate crisis, nothing to reverse the wretchedness of Tory dog whistle asylum policies. Not only that, but Labour would inherit such an economic bin fire they'll have no money to make anyone's life noticeably any better. Their honeymoon will make the reign of Agent Truss seem lengthy. And then what? And then what? Well, an unambitious and frankly conservative Labour government with no spare money to spend is the perfect and horrifying recipe for extremists of left and right, trots and populists to emerge with simplistic solutions to Britain's deep and complex problems. Then we face a serious threat to our very future as a democratic country, as a decent country. In that terrifying scenario, I tell you what Britain will desperately need. Britain will need Liberals. Liberals in our communities, Liberals in our councils, and Liberals in Parliament. Now, I'm sure this stage has seen panto often enough. Josh has done some outstanding kind of audience call and response. Time for some more audience participation. Bet you're all feeling thrilled. If you are a parliamentary candidate in the upcoming general election, stand up now, please. So I know that will have been very hard for you, what with you all being deep state operatives, but there you are, coming out and being seen. So look, so thank you for standing up for our party, for your communities, and standing up just now. Of course, though, let's all know our place. As I've been told consistently for 30 years now, candidates, we're merely a legal necessity. But those wonderful people will be led, me included, by someone that I am deeply, deeply proud of. This is an election where character will matter even more than policy, integrity even more than ideology. So we are blessed, we are lucky to be led by the most decent leader in British politics. We are lucky to be led by Ed Davey. But as we face the corrosion of decency and democracy, every single one of those Liberal Democrat candidates that you put in Parliament creates a fire door against the wickedness of extremism. These are not humanity's finest times. I wonder if you scream at the telly or doom scroll at the horrors in Eastern Europe, in the Middle East, in America, in our communities in the UK, whether you are overwhelmed by the threats to peace, to internationalism, to our planet, to our democracy. Do you feel a powerless, frustrated spectator? Here's the truth. You are not spectators. Don't you see? You are players. You are not in the stands. You are on the pitch. You are protagonists. You don't just have a dog in this fight. You are the dog in this fight. And this is a fight. This is a fight we will win by doing the basics really, really well. And by being unbelievably, unapologetically, unreasonable in what we expect of ourselves and of one another. Before I got elected, and I was on the Target Seat programme, I remember being with a friend who was another Target Seat candidate, and he told me to take what the campaigns department told me with a pinch of salt. You don't need to do that, all that, Tim. Slow down. This is a marathon. This is not a sprint. So, of course, I ignored my friend. I'm afraid he lost, and I won by the skin of my teeth. You see, if the election is in October, November, December, yep, it could even be January, then yes, this campaign could very well feel like a marathon. But we need to accept and embrace the fact right now that this will be a marathon at sprint pace. Every one of the communities that our key seat candidates are fighting for deserves an MP, a Liberal Democrat MP, who will serve them with the decency and the intensity that only a community politics Liberal can. But even more important, the country we love deserves something old-fashioned, something we haven't had for some time. Hope. Hope. Don't the voters deserve someone who will offer them some hope? And every seat that we win gives Britain a chance, a fighting chance, not to fall to the populism, the division, the extremism that we see in other parts of the West. The chance for Britain, against all the odds, to be a beacon of decency, of unity, of freedom, of competence, of compassion that restores people's trust in our tainted and fragile democracy. You have never mattered more than you do today. How you spend your time has never mattered more. Fellow Liberals, we have been raised up for such a time as this. We have a party to build, communities to serve, and a country to save. Do not falter.